Chapter 3. The Investigation. Uncovering 15 Years of Lies. After the confrontations, I thought I knew the worst of it. I thought finding out about the affair and the paternity fraud was rock bottom. Turns out, I hadn't even started digging yet. Patricia Holcomb, my attorney, had warned me that discovery in divorce cases often reveals more than people expect. Infidelity rarely exists in a vacuum, she'd said during our second meeting. Where there's deception about relationships, there's usually deception about money too. She wasn't wrong. Patricia connected me with a forensic accountant named Gerald Wu, a quiet, methodical guy who'd spent 20 years tracking financial fraud for the IRS before going private. He looked like someone's boring uncle, but the man could follow a money trail through a hurricane. I gave Gerald access to everything: bank statements, credit card records, tax returns, business accounts. 14 years of financial history spread across our kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. He spent 2 weeks analyzing it all while I tried to keep functioning at work and pretending to my kids that their world wasn't about to implode. When Gerald finally called me into his office to present his findings, he had this expression on his face that I'd come to recognize. The same look that doctor had given me when explaining blood type genetics. The "I'm sorry for what I'm about to tell you" look. "Mr. Thompson," he began, sliding a thick folder across his desk, "your wife has been systematically diverting funds from your joint accounts for at least 12 years. How much are we talking? Conservatively, between $4,000 and $5,000 annually. Over 12 years, that's approximately $50,000 to $60,000. 60 grand. I'd worked my ass off for 15 years, missed soccer games and school plays, sacrificed time with my family to build my business, and my wife had been skimming money off the top to fund her affair." Gerald walked me through the evidence. Cash withdrawals that didn't match any household expenses. A secret credit card I'd never known existed, with statements going to her mother's address. Charges at hotels during weekends. She'd supposedly been visiting her college roommate in Asheville. Expensive gifts, jewelry, electronics, clothes that I'd never seen her wear or use. "There's more," Gerald said. I cross-referenced these expenditures with financial records we obtained from Derek Morrison through the discovery process. The patterns match. Hotel charges on his card during the same dates as her cash withdrawals. Deposits into his account that correspond with cash she took from yours. They weren't just having an affair, Mr. Thompson. They were running a parallel household, and you were funding it. I sat there staring at those spreadsheets, those neat columns of numbers that represented years of betrayal I'd been too trusting to see. Every late night, I'd worked to grow Thompson and Sons. Every weekend I'd spent on job sites instead of with my family. I thought I was building something for us, for our future. Instead, I was bankrolling my wife's secret life with another man. But the financial stuff, as gut-wrenching as it was, wasn't the worst of what I discovered. Patricia had also connected me with a digital forensics specialist named Terrence Jackson. Terrence was a former FBI cybercrime analyst who now worked private cases, and his specialty was recovering deleted data from phones and cloud accounts. I gave him access to Vanessa's old devices, 3 iPhones she'd upgraded over the years and kept in a drawer for memories, and her cloud backup information. What Terrence recovered broke something inside me that I'm not sure will ever fully heal. 15 years of messages between Vanessa and Derek. Thousands of texts, emails, and photos that told the complete story of their affair from beginning to end. I spent 3 sleepless nights reading through them, each message twisting the knife a little deeper. The early messages were almost innocent, flirty, testing boundaries. "Marcus is working late again. I'm bored. Come keep me company?" Then they escalated. Explicit photos I'll never be able to unsee. Love declarations that should have been meant for me. Plans and logistics of their hookups. Coordinated around my work schedule like I was just an obstacle to manage. But the messages that destroyed me most weren't the romantic ones. They were the ones about my children. "Ethan looks just like you, D. Same eyes, same smile. Marcus has no idea. Olivia has your dimples. I see you in her face every day. I'm pregnant again. 3 weeks. I think it's yours. It's always yours." They'd known. The whole time, they'd known those kids were Derek's, and they'd watch me bond with them, love them, raise them, and they'd laughed about my obliviousness. There were jokes, actual jokes about how clueless I was. Derek calling me the wallet in one message. Vanessa responded with a crying, laughing emoji. Discussions about whether they should just tell Marcus and be together openly. That always ended the same way, with Vanessa saying she couldn't give up the lifestyle I provided. D, you know I love you, but Marcus gives me security. The house, the money, the stability for the kids. I can't throw that away. So I'm just a guy on the side forever? You're the father of my children. You're everything. But Marcus is useful. 15 years of marriage. And that's what I was to her. Useful. I threw up after reading that exchange. Literally walked to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left. Then I sat on the cold tile floor and cried like I hadn't cried since I was a child. But even that wasn't the bottom. The real bottom came when Terrence found the messages about Ethan. My son, the boy I'd raised, coached, loved unconditionally for 13 years, had started asking questions. Apparently, about 6 months before I discovered the truth, Ethan had mentioned to Vanessa that he'd done a genetics project at school and was confused about some things. Blood types, inherited traits, things that didn't quite add up. Instead of telling me, instead of coming clean, Vanessa had begun what I can only describe as grooming our son to accept the truth and keep it secret. Ethan and I had a talk today. She texted Derek. He's smart. Too smart. He's figuring things out. What did you tell him? That families are complicated. That sometimes adults make mistakes. That no matter what, his dad loves him, and that's what matters. Which dad? Both, I guess. I'm preparing him for when we eventually tell Marcus, or when he figures it out himself. She was preparing my son to betray me, teaching him that lying to your father was acceptable, conditioning him to accept Derek, his biological father, as something more than Uncle Derek, all while I was working 60 hours a week to pay for his braces, his soccer equipment, his college fund. The manipulation was calculated and deliberate. Vanessa wasn't just cheating on me. She was systematically poisoning my relationship with my own children, preparing them to choose Derek over me when the truth finally came out. That's when my devastation transformed into something else, something harder and colder and infinitely more dangerous. This wasn't just about a cheating wife anymore. This wasn't just about a backstabbing best friend. This was about two people who had used my children as pawns in their deception, who had manipulated innocent kids to serve their own selfish agenda, who had planned to eventually discard me like a used tool once I was no longer useful. They'd treated my family like a game, like a con they were running together, and they'd assumed I was too stupid and too trusting to ever figure out. They were wrong. I gathered every piece of evidence, the financial records, the recovered messages, the photos, the timeline of their affair, and I organized into the most comprehensive documentation of betrayal you've ever seen. Hundreds of pages proving exactly what Vanessa and Derek had done, exactly how long they'd done it, and exactly how they conspired to deceive me and manipulate my children. Then I called Patricia Holcomb. I want to destroy them. I told her, not just a divorce. I want Derek to lose everything. His marriage, his reputation, his career. I want Vanessa to understand exactly what she threw away. And I want my kids, because they're my kids, DNA be damned, to know that their father fought for them. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Mr. Thompson, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've seen a lot of scorned spouses come through my door wanting revenge. Most of them don't have what it takes to follow through. Do you? Try me? Good, because we're going to war. And by the time we're done, Derek Morrison won't have a life left to ruin. Now here's what we're going to do. The legal battle was about to begin, and I was bringing enough ammunition to level everything they'd built on the foundation of my stolen life. Chapter 4. The Legal War. Custody, divorce, and calculated destruction. Patricia Holcomb wasn't kidding when she said we were going to war. Over the next 14 months, I learned more about family law, custody proceedings, and legal strategy than I ever wanted to know. But I also learned something more important. When you've got the evidence and the determination, You can burn down everything your enemies built and salt the earth behind you. We started with the divorce itself. North Carolina is what's called an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly, not necessarily equally. And here's the thing about fairly in divorce court. Documented adultery and financial misconduct can tip those scales dramatically in your favor. Patricia built our case like an architect designing a fortress. Every piece of evidence I'd gathered, the DNA tests, the recovered messages, the financial forensics, the timeline of deception, got organized into a comprehensive filing that painted Vanessa as exactly what she was, a serial cheater who committed paternity fraud, diverted marital assets to fund her affair, and systematically deceived her husband for 15 years. We're not just proving infidelity. Patricia explained during one of our strategy sessions. We're proving wasteful dissipation of marital assets. Every dollar she spent on Derek, every hotel room, every secret credit card payment, that's money that should have gone to your family. The court can factor that into the division. We calculated that Vanessa had spent approximately $62,000 on her affair over 12 years. Patricia argued that amount should be credited back to me in the asset division. The judge agreed. But the divorce settlement, as satisfying as it was, wasn't my primary focus. The real battle, the one that kept me up at night and drove every decision I made, was custody. Here's what most people don't understand about paternity fraud cases. In most states, the man listed on the birth certificate is legally the father, regardless of biology. I'd signed those birth certificates. I'd been present at every delivery. In the eyes of the law, Ethan, Olivia, and Maya were my children, and I had parental rights. But Vanessa's attorney tried to use the DNA evidence against me. Their argument was almost laughably cruel. Since I wasn't a biological father, I shouldn't have custody rights. They wanted to position Derek as the real father, with Vanessa as the primary custodial parent, and reduce me to some kind of glorified babysitter who'd been tricked into raising another man's kids. Not a chance in hell. Patricia countered with something called the psychological parent doctrine. Under North Carolina law, a person who isn't biologically related to a child can still establish parental rights if they function as a parent and formed a significant emotional bond with the child. I'd been those kids' father for their entire lives. I'd coached their sports teams, helped with their homework, dried their tears, celebrated their achievements. I was the one who showed up day after day, year after year. Derek? He'd been Uncle Derek at barbecues, a fun visitor who showed up with presents and left before bedtime. He'd never done the hard work of parenting, because he'd been too busy screwing my wife while I handled the responsibilities he created. We brought in child psychologists who testified about the damage that would result from removing me from my children's lives. We presented school records showing I was a parent who attended conferences and events. We showed medical records where I was listed as the emergency contact, the decision maker, the involved father. And then we played our trump card, Vanessa's own messages about grooming Ethan to keep secrets. Your Honor, Patricia argued during one of our hearings, the respondent has demonstrated a pattern of deception that extends to manipulating her own children. She was actively preparing her eldest son to participate in concealing the truth from the man who raised him. This is not the behavior of a fit custodial parent. This is psychological manipulation of minors. The judge's face when she reviewed those messages told me everything I needed to know. Vanessa's attorney tried to spin it as a mother trying to protect her children from a difficult truth, but nobody was buying it. After 8 months of motions, hearings, psychological evaluations, and legal maneuvering, the judge issued her ruling. I was granted primary physical custody of all 3 children. Vanessa got visitation rights every other weekend and alternating holidays, but I was their primary parent. The man who'd raised them, loved them, and fought for them. I cried in the courthouse bathroom after that ruling, not from sadness, from relief, from vindication, from the overwhelming realization that I hadn't lost everything after all. But I wasn't done, not even close. See, while the divorce and custody battle were consuming most of my energy, I'd been running a parallel operation against Derek. Call it revenge, call it justice, call it whatever you want. I call it consequences. Derek Morrison thought he could father 3 children with my wife, laugh about my ignorance behind my back, and walk away clean when everything collapsed. He was dead wrong. The first thing I discovered during my investigation was that Derek had never told his wife about the affair. He'd been married to a woman named Stephanie for 11 years. They had 2 kids of their own, a 9-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. Stephanie had no idea that her husband had been sleeping with Vanessa for 15 years, or that he'd fathered 3 children with another woman while building a family with her. I debated for about 30 seconds whether to tell her. Then I remembered those messages where Derek called me the wallet, where he and Vanessa joked about my obliviousness, where they discussed their future together, funded by my money, built on my labor. I sent Stephanie the evidence package anonymously, the DNA tests, the recovered messages, the financial records showing Derek had been diverting money from his own household to support his affair. Everything delivered in a manila envelope to her office, so Derek couldn't intercept it. 3 weeks later, Stephanie filed for divorce. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd kicked Derek out of the house, hired the meanest attorney in Mecklenburg County, and was pursuing full custody of their kids. Derek went from family man with a comfortable life to sleeping on his brother's couch, desperately tried to explain to his legitimate children why Daddy didn't live at home anymore. But I wasn't finished. During the financial investigation, Gerald Wu had uncovered some irregularities in Derek's contracting business. Nothing connected to my case specifically, just sloppy bookkeeping, some unreported income, a few contracts that didn't quite pass the smell test. Gerald flagged them, but noted they weren't relevant to my divorce. I made them relevant. I compiled the information and submitted an anonymous complaint to the North Carolina Licensing Board for General Contractors. Included documentation of the financial discrepancies. Suggested they might want to audit Mr. Morrison's business records. They did. Turns out Derek had been cutting corners for years, using substandard materials, billing for work that wasn't completed, fudging inspection reports. The licensing board launched a full investigation. Within 4 months, Derek's contractor license was suspended pending review. His bonding company dropped him. Clients started demanding refunds. Subcontractors refused to work with him. The business he'd spent 15 years building, while I'd been raising his children and support his affair, collapsed like a house of cards. Last I heard, Derek Morrison had lost his wife, his children, his contractor's license, and his business. He was working as a laborer for a roofing company in Gastonia, making $18 an hour and living in a 1-bedroom apartment. His relationship with his legitimate kids was destroyed. His professional reputation was in ruins. Was I directly responsible for all of that? Maybe not all of it. Derek made choices that led to his own destruction. I just made sure the right people knew about those choices. Did I feel guilty? Not for 1 second. That man stole 15 years of my life, fathered 3 children he never intended to raise, and treated me like a joke while I worked myself to bone supporting his secret family. The consequences he faced weren't revenge. They were karma, delivered express mail. By the time the dust settled, I'd won everything that mattered. My children, my assets, my dignity. Vanessa was left with minimal spousal support that would end in 3 years, a damaged reputation, and the knowledge that she'd thrown away a good man for someone who ended up with nothing. And Derek? Derek learned what happens when you build your life on betrayal and deception. Eventually, the foundation cracks. And when it does, everything comes crashing down. But winning the legal battle was only part of my journey. The harder work, the work that really mattered, was rebuilding. Figuring out how to be a father to 3 children who just learned their entire family history was a lie. Learning how to trust again after the 2 people closest to me had betrayed me so completely. That's what came next. And honestly, it was harder than any courtroom fight. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. Rebuilding from the ashes of betrayal. Winning in court was the easy part. Rebuilding a family from the wreckage of betrayal. That's where the real work began. The day after the final divorce decree was signed, I sat in my living room now, not ours, and stared at the walls of a house that suddenly felt both familiar and foreign. The kids were at school. The settlement was finalized. Vanessa had moved into an apartment across town. Derek's life was in shambles. By every measurable standard, I'd won. So why did I feel so empty? I think it's because victory in situations like this doesn't feel like victory. There's no celebration, no triumph, just exhaustion, and the slow realization that you have to figure out how to live again after everything you believed was a lie. The hardest part was the kids. How do you explain to 3 children that their mother betrayed their father, that the man they called Uncle Derek was actually their biological father, that the family they'd known their whole lives was built on deception? There's no manual for that conversation, no right way to shatter a child's understanding of their own identity. I worked with a family therapist named Dr. Rebecca Santos. She specialized in helping families navigate trauma, and she became my lifeline during those first brutal months. Her advice was simple but difficult. Be honest in age-appropriate ways. Reassure them constantly that your love hasn't changed, and let them process their emotions without judgment. Ethan was the hardest. At 15, he was old enough to understand the full scope of what had happened, and old enough to feel the weight of it. He remembered those private conversations with his mother, the hints she dropped about complicated adult stuff. He realized she'd been preparing him to accept a truth that would have destroyed his relationship with me. For weeks, Ethan barely spoke to anyone. He'd come home from school, go straight to his room, and emerge only for dinner. When he did talk, it was either monosyllabic responses or angry outbursts about how much he hated his mother, hated Derek, hated everything. One night, about 2 months after the divorce finalized, I found him sitting on the back porch, staring at nothing. I sat down next to him without saying anything. We stayed like that for maybe 10 minutes before he finally spoke. "Are you going to leave us?" The question hit me like a punch to the chest. "What?" "No. Why would you think that?" "Because we're not yours." His voice cracked. "We're his. Biologically, we're Derek's kids. And I know you hate him. So why would you want to keep raising his children?" I turned to face my son, because that's what he was. DNA be damned, and I looked him straight in the eyes. "Ethan, listen to me. I changed your diapers. I taught you to ride a bike. I sat with you in the emergency room when you broke your arm falling off the monkey bars in 2nd grade. I coached your little league team and watched every single one of your soccer games. I helped you with math homework and stayed up late talking about girls and drove you to school every morning for 13 years. I put my hand on his shoulder. Biology doesn't make a father. Being there makes a father. And I have been there every single day of your life. That's not going to change because of some DNA test. You are my son. Olivia is my daughter. Maya is my daughter. Nothing will ever change that." He broke down crying. This tough, 15-year-old kid who'd been trying so hard to hold it together just collapsed into sobs. I held him on that porch for 20 minutes while he let out all the fear and confusion and grief he'd been carrying. After that night, things started to get better. Slowly, painfully, but better. Olivia, at 13 now, handled it differently. She was angry, furious at her mother in a way that honestly scared me sometimes. She refused to go to Vanessa's apartment for visitation weekends. When the court required her to attend, she'd sit in silence the entire time, answering questions with one-word responses, counting the minutes until I picked her up. I tried to encourage her to maintain a relationship with her mother. Whatever Vanessa had done to me, she was still their mom. But Olivia wasn't having it. "She lied to us, Dad," she told me once. "Every single day, she looked at us and lied. How am I supposed to trust anything she says ever again?" I didn't have a good answer for that, because honestly, I felt the same way. Maya, at 8 now, was too young to fully understand the biology of it all, but old enough to feel the tension and changes in her family. She had nightmares for a while, cried more easily, became clingy in ways she hadn't been before. Dr. Santos worked with her individually, using play therapy and art to help her process emotions she couldn't articulate. These days, Maya seems mostly okay. She still asks questions sometimes. Why Mommy doesn't live with us anymore, why we don't see Uncle Derek, why everything changed. I answer as honestly as I can without burdening her with adult complexity. She knows I love her. She knows I'm not going anywhere. For now, that's enough. It's been 2 years since I found out the truth. 2 years since that doctor's appointment that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. The kids are doing better. Ethan's 16 now, got his driver's license, talking about college. He still struggles with anger sometimes, still has complicated feelings about his mother, but he's working through it. Our relationship is stronger than ever, forged in fire, I guess you could say. Olivia is 14 and fierce as hell. She's protective of me in ways that make my heart ache, always watching for signs that I'm struggling, always ready to defend our family. Her relationship with Vanessa remains strained. I've stopped pushing her to fix it. That's her choice to make. Maya's a happy 8-year-old who loves soccer and art, and her dog, a golden retriever we adopted last year named Biscuit. She sees Vanessa every other weekend and seems to enjoy the visits, which I'm grateful for. Whatever happened between me and her mother, Maya deserves to have a mom in her life. As for Derek, the kids have no relationship with him. He tried reaching out once, about a year ago, sent a letter to our house addressed to Ethan, wanting to explain and be part of their lives. Ethan read it, then tore it up and threw it in the trash without a word. Derek got the message. He hasn't tried again. I've started dating. Cautiously. There's a woman named Jennifer I've been seeing for about 4 months, a paralegal I met through, of all things, my divorce attorney's office. She's divorced too, has a daughter Olivia's age, understands what it means to rebuild after betrayal. I'm not rushing anything. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust someone the way I trusted Vanessa, but I'm trying. My business is thriving. Thompson and Sons landed 3 major contracts last year, and I've hired 6 new employees. Work has been my therapy, my distraction, my proof that I can still build something good even after everything was torn down. And me? Who am I now after all of this? I'm harder than I used to be, more guarded. The naive guy who believed his wife and trusted his best friend without question, that guy is gone. I verify things now. I pay attention to details I would have overlooked before. I don't take people at their word anymore. But I'm also stronger, more certain of what matters. I know now that family isn't about blood. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard. It's about choosing to love people and then backing that choice up with action. I chose those kids when I thought they were biologically mine, and I chose them again when I found out they weren't. That choice defines me more than any DNA test ever could. The revenge was satisfying, I won't lie. Watching Derek lose everything he'd built on my deception, watching Vanessa face the consequences of her choices. Yeah, that felt like justice. But that's not what saved me. What saved me was refusing to let their betrayal define my future. Refusing to abandon children who needed me. Refusing to become bitter and broken just because 2 people I loved turned out to be monsters. They took 15 years of my life. But they didn't take my children. They didn't take my dignity. And they sure as hell didn't take my ability to be a good father and a good man. That's the real victory. Not the court rulings or the financial settlements or watching my enemies suffer. The real victory is sitting at the dinner table with my 3 kids, helping with homework, arguing about whose turn it is to walk the dog, living a normal life that I fought like hell to keep. They tried to destroy me. I'm still standing. And if you're going through something similar, if your world has collapsed and you're wondering whether you'll survive, let me tell you something. You will. Not unchanged, not unscathed, but you will survive and you will rebuild and you will find out what you're really made of. I did, and so can you.